Welcome. I'm Tôn Nguyen, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Boston Global Forum. I'm very honored to introduce Professor Robert Desimone. Robert Desimone is the director of the McGavin Institute and the Doris and Don Becky Professor in the Department of Brain and Cognitive Science at MIT, and a member of the Boston Global Forum's Board of Thinkers. Glory of Bob, we introduced already on Boston Global Forum some days ago, and I think all of you read and honor him and respect him already. Today we would like to say something more. That is, Governor Michael Dukakis, chairman of Boston Global Forum, visited the McGavin Institute on December 12, 2013. He is very impressive and has a high respect for the achievements of the McGavin Institute and Professor Robert Desimone. He and Kitty Dukakis will visit the Institute again in later April 2014. Today, Chairman Michael Dukakis and Kitty Dukakis are in Los Angeles. They send their warmest regards to Professor Robert Desimone and the McGavin Institute for Brain Research. Boston Global Forum will recognize and honor the McGavin Institute research achievements and Edward M. Skolnick Prize in Neuroscience in the Boston Global Archive, and at a later stage, BGF will and add it to Boston Global Museum, an initiative we are working on the future. Today, we are very honored to present to you Professor Robert Desimone on the BGF Leaders Series. Thank you so much. Now, Professor Robert Desimone.
Thank you, Tuan. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak on the Boston Global Forum. I support the mission of the Boston Global Forum very much, and I especially appreciate the support that Governor Dukakis, Kitty Dukakis have given over the years to brain research. I'm going to talk quite a bit about that today, and really just delighted to be part of the forum and speaking to you. I thought I would start by just giving a little bit about my own background. When I was in college, at that time I thought I wanted to be a psychotherapist and help people in therapy suffering from mental illness. But I realized that my talents actually were not in therapy, and I actually had stronger talents in neuroscience research, and so I pursued my graduate work at Princeton in neuroscience research, and then went to the National Institutes of Health, particularly the National Institute of Mental Health, where I was a scientist in the program and eventually became a lab head in the program, pursuing my research on the neural basis of how the brain pays attention. And then at some point I was asked to become the head of the intramural program for the NIMH, which is the internally funded research division of the National Institute of Mental Health. It is the largest mental health research center in the world, with research ranging from mice to many clinical wards, with patients ranging from children to the elderly. We had a great many clinicians, psychiatrists in the program. And when I became responsible for the program, I realized how difficult it was for our clinicians to be making progress in the coming up with new treatments for the patient populations. They were incredibly committed, incredibly smart and hardworking, but the sad fact was that the pipeline of new ideas new drugs and so on was really pretty dry. And I foresaw that this was going to continue unless we really made more progress in understanding a lot of the fundamentals of how the brain worked, so that we could develop new treatments based on this fundamental understanding of the brain and its circuits. And to make progress in this fundamental research, that's when I decided I would come to MIT. I was offered to become the director of the McGovern Institute at MIT, which was a fantastic opportunity for me. Just a bit about the McGovern Institute. The McGovern Institute was founded in 2000 by Pat and Lori McGovern at MIT, and over the years we have put together a team of faculty members that now includes 19 faculty members whose research ranges from basic mechanisms of genetics and neural development, even in worms, going up through a variety of other animal species and then into human subjects, where we study human cognition and health and disease. We have many distinguished faculty members, several members of the National Academy of Science, and one Nobel Prize winner, Bob Horvitz, for his work on the genetic basis of programmed cell death, which plays a very important role in the development and ongoing operation of the brain. In retrospect, I feel that this decision to come to MIT, where we had such a strong foundation in basic research, was really the best decision I've made in my research career, and I think it's my decision has really been borne out by what's happened since then. It's become clear in just the last few years that psychiatric diseases that we thought, for example, were very, very distinct from each other, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disease, autism, very, very distinct disorders, at least appeared so from a clinical point of view, actually share many, many genes that lead to vulnerability for these disorders. And many of these genes affect how neurons communicate with each other in the brain. And problems in neural communication can lead to increased vulnerability for, again, any number of psychiatric disorders. So this focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on those commonalities, things like how neurons communicate in the healthy brain, and then how can that go wrong? How can you have miscommunication that would lead to a psychiatric disorder? Is really, I think, proven to be the best approach. And once you lay this foundation of knowledge at a basic level, then you can proceed on to translational studies where you can test new treatments. This philosophy has been adopted also by our president, President Obama, in the new BRAIN initiative, which is focused on the development of new technology for brain research. And new technology, again, is one of those things where when you have an all-new technique, it's like for the astronomers, you know, the invention of the telescope, for the biologists, the invention of the microscope. For the neuroscientists, putting the powerful new tools in their hands is going to lead to rapid progress across the board in neuroscience research, and it will surely accelerate the pace of research that will lead to new treatments for mental disease. I thought I would use the next few minutes to tell you about some of the most exciting advances in brain research, all of them actually driven by new technology that's been developed in just the past few years. I guess I would start with a sort of the prototype for how we imagine research becoming accelerated in the future, which is the cost of sequencing the genome. As many of you know, there was the Human Genome Sequencing Project led to the sequencing of the human genome some years ago, but it was an incredibly expensive enterprise that took tremendous resources spread across labs, took many years to accomplish. But now the cost of sequencing has dropped so low compared to the initial cost that a project that initially was many millions of dollars now costs on the order of a few $1,000s to sequence the genome of one individual. And that has opened up genomic approaches to large populations. We've had an explosion of genetic discoveries in all areas of medicine, but I would say particularly in psychiatric disorders, where we have a reasonable understanding of some of the many genes that are contributing to vulnerabilities in these disorders. Now, of course, there's no direct link between a genetic mutation and a psychiatric disorder in almost any case, very, very rare cases. But the mutations can lead to increased vulnerability, so there may be some other event that happens in life, whether it's a virus, biological factor, an environmental stressor, many different factors are going to interact with genetic basis. But together, these genetic mutations can lead to this increased in vulnerability, and that's fueling a host of new neuroscience studies to understand this link between a genetic vulnerability and how you ultimately end up with a abnormally functioning neural circuit and then dysfunctional behavior. And then once we understand those links, then we can intervene with treatment. So this we've tremendously benefited from the new technology involved in sequencing. Some of the other major advances in just the last few years include what in neuroscience we call optogenetics. This is one of the many tools of neuroscience that has come out of the genetic program. These are the tools of genetics. And with optogenetics, researchers are able to insert genetic material into neurons and make them sensitive to light. That allows the researchers to have exquisite control over the neural circuits involved in health and disease. These are an animal model so far, but have exquisite control over these neural patterns and to test our ideas about how these circuits work and how they may break down in disease. There will be clinical applications in the future. Perhaps the first will be in treatment for blindness. There's already studies underway to put this genetic material into cells in our retina for people suffering from macular degeneration, retinitis pigmentosa, for example. That could help restore vision in these people by making some of the other neural elements in the retina sensitive to light when the photoreceptors are destroyed. I think we'll see applications in brain stimulation in Parkinson's disease, perhaps depression, and so on. It has completely changed the pace of neuroscience discovery in just the last several years. Two of our faculty, actually three of our faculty members here in the McGovern Institute played an absolutely key role in the development of optogenetics, including Ed Boyden, Feng Zhang, and Guoping Feng, who are all continuing to do research, some of which involves optogenetics today. Another major technological advance that's really impacted our research is human brain imaging in many forms. Most of it's based on MRI machines, which I'm sure most of the audience has seen pictures of these machines, magazine articles and so on, the large donut-shaped machines, and people get inserted, and then you can image the brain. Most people have seen structural images of brain that come out of these machines, but we can now image functional changes. We can track the activity patterns in the brain, at least on a coarse temporal time scale. And you can actually see the brain at work as people solve problems, have emotions, understand situations, and so on. And it's been applied now to many different patient groups to try to track down sources of abnormal neural circuits. Just the next few years, I think that the brain imaging technology will be paired with these genetic approaches, so that in the future, when we talk about genetic mutation that leads to a vulnerability for disease such as depression or bipolar or schizophrenia, we'd be able to actually say something about what that vulnerability really means. We might be able to say that the vulnerability involves abnormal activity in certain particular brain circuits that we've identified in MRI by imaging people that we've done this genotyping on. And once we've narrowed that down, again, between the gene alteration and the abnormal activity in circuits, that is going to put us on the right path to new discoveries. Another just a really amazing discovery in just the past year came out of Stanford, where in Carl Dijsselhoff's lab, they developed a way of making the brain, at least of animals, completely transparent. So you can actually see straight through it. And if you combine that technology with genetic tools for labeling cells, you can track the connections within neural circuits with unprecedented precision. And people are just now gearing up to apply this new technology and human brain material from people who have died but have lived lives where they've suffered from schizophrenia and Alzheimer's disease and so on. And we will be able, again, to, with unprecedented ability, able to track the abnormalities in this brain tissue from people who have died with disease. Increasingly, we're adopting the tools of modern industrial production in neuroscience research. You know, one of the things that made genetic research possible was the applications of robots that carried out hundreds and thousands and millions of repetitive tasks to do the sequencing. Well, the same robotic technology is being applied to neuroscience studies, where it's now possible to use robots to record the activity of different interacting neurons. And soon we'll have this ability to record and sample neural material, again, from these disease models of human disease, and relate the changes in neurons to the underlying genetic vulnerability rather, that we see in mental disease. This is a program that's being spearheaded here by Ed Boyden in the McGovern Institute. Of course, there's a great need for us to develop really quantitative theories of brain function. You know, this is the incredible valuable role of theories is obvious in fields like physics and chemistry, for example, but in neuroscience, that's been really difficult to achieve because we've lacked a lot of the basic facts about how these neural circuits work. But just in the last several years, part due to the new technology, rapid pace of discovery, we're developing better and better theories of how neural circuits work. We have a new center at MIT, the Center for Mind, Brains, and Machines, that headed by Tommy Poggio, faculty member in the Institute, that is funded by the National Science Foundation with the goal of understanding human intelligence, developing quantitative, testable theories of intelligent behavior, and then testing these ideas through these models and even through applications to intelligent machines. So, for example, there was an effort to develop intelligent robots that would have some aspect of human intelligence and be able to learn from new situations and make better decisions and so on. This is really, I think, part of the overall effort that we'll be seeing in the next few years to put intelligence into many of the devices we operate with every day. And I think our evaluation of that kind of intelligence will be, is it the kind of intelligence that a human being would have in the same situation? And this is the kind of thing that neuroscience will be contributing a lot to, is this understanding of what that intelligent behavior really is. So I've emphasized the disease applications of neuroscience because, of course, that's our primary goal in neuroscience research. But again, going back to the basic research enterprise, understanding that the human brain is surely the greatest frontier in science today. It will give us insight into the nature of ourselves, and it will clearly require the effort of people all over the world. We here in the McGovern Institute have interactions with scientists all over the world. We're helping to build neuroscience programs in other countries. We have a very active program in China, for example. We want to bring in worldwide neuroscientists to work on these problems, and in return, I think we will also gain a better understanding of how the human brain functions in different cultures, how there may be miscommunications between people across cultures because of basically how our brains are constructed, and how we might do a better job in understanding and communicating with people with many very varied backgrounds, different expectations, and so on. And I know that was certainly one of the initial goals of the Pat and Lori McGovern when they founded the Institute, was to lead to this increased communications between people, which would certainly lead to a better and more peaceful world for us all. Finally, the last thing I'll mention is, of course, many of you may have questions about the ethics of neuroscience research. What does this all mean? What are the implications of neuroscience research for many of the ethical issues we concern about, privacy and so on? And I think that that's another topic that needs to be included in the mix of issues in the upcoming years of neuroscience research. We need to be attentive to these issues. We need to engage people in all areas from around the world in all walks of life, engage them in this discussion, and in the end have, I hope, everyone understand that we're all in this effort together. We're all making the effort, and we'll all reap the benefits, I hope, of neuroscience research in the future. So I hope that has given you a bit of an introduction to what we're trying to do here and the research we do, and I'd be happy to answer some of your questions.
Great. Thank you so much for your very interesting introduction and talk. And now we are thank you so much for your for our audience, they send enthusiasm, send questions, and now watch our talks. We have selected some questions, and now, please.
So today we chose some questions that were sent from our audience to ask our professor today. So shall we start? So the first question is it true that we only use 10% of the productivity of our brains? As a neuroscientist, can you tell me the ways to unlock the brain to its highest potential productivity?
I think the figure 10% is a bit of exaggeration. But the point, I think, is highly relevant, which is that we don't, in fact, use our brain to its fullest potential in many cases. And one of the goals of neuroscience research is to expand opportunities for people to realize that potential, and particularly to influence the education of our children. We've learned a tremendous lot about how the brain learns, the conditions under which the brain learns optimally, and we're already doing studies here in the McGovern Institute to see how we can improve education in schools, applying principles of neuroscience. We have tests going on both here in Boston and in sites around the world, and I would really I would see that as a huge goal, is to enhance the learning of people from children going to adults.
Okay. So the next question is there anything I can do to keep my brain healthy in the older age?
Well, that's a question that a lot of people are struggling with today. There's a lot of interest in that. As we all get older, we're all thinking about what we can do to keep our brains healthy and aging. And there are certainly some studies that suggest that mental activity, challenging mental activity, can keep the brain healthy. I think there's also good evidence that keeping your body healthy has the indirect effect of keeping your brain healthy. I mean, the brain is another organ in the body. And so people who keep themselves fit, who exercise and so on, are likely to have better blood flow to the brain and so on. And that's all going to help as we get older.
So our audience wants to ask, can we predict our actions and emotional states by learning about our brains?
Prediction is maybe a tricky issue. I would say we would understand better our actions and emotional reactions to things from understanding the brain. To just give you one example, some neuroscientists have done studies of empathy, how it is that we can feel sorry for people. And they've had subjects in brain imaging scanners observing videos of other people interacting and so on. And what has been found is that when you see someone being hurt, that you're utilizing some of the same neural circuits you use when you yourself are hurt. And so empathy seems to involve a brain system that is sort of relating it back to yourself, sort of how would I feel in that situation? And that is something that I think would be strongly encouraged for people to take that attitude, and the brain is sort of biased towards that kind of approach.
Okay. So next questions are about the prize and the achievements of our institute. First question, from 2014, the winners and the achievements of the McGovern Institute for Brain Research will be honored in Boston Global Forum, and later the achievements will be put in Boston Global Museum. Can you explain more about the Skolnick Prize for Neuroscience? Does it link to the unlock the human brains?
I should say, first of all, that the Skolnick Prize was endowed by the Merck Pharmaceutical Company to honor Ed Skolnick, who was their director of research for many years, 25 years, led to many of the major new drug treatments that came out from Merck over those years. And Ed is right here in Boston. He's over at the Broad Institute, just across the street from our institute, where he leads a group doing research on psychiatric disorders. He's a giant in the field of medicine and biology. The prize is meant to honor neuroscientists who have done outstanding work either at the basic level or more translational, closer to disease. Every year it's different. This particular year, the prize is going to Huda Zogby, who I think really epitomizes the goal of neuroscience. She's someone who has done both basic research on brain circuits and the role of genes, but has also really done fantastic work on understanding a particular genetic form of autism. She's developed the animal models, and she's identified some of the gene variants in people, and someone who's clearly making a difference in clinical science, but based on this foundation of great work in neuroscience.
Our audience wants to ask, what is the greatest achievement of the McGovern Institute?
Well, in the time that the McGovern Institute has been in existence since 2000, I would say certainly our greatest recognition was the Nobel Prize that was won by Bob Horvitz for his work on the genetic basis of programmed cell death. Incredibly important discovery in really all of biology. Certainly affects our understanding of brain function. That would be hard to top. But we've had many of our scientists have made fantastic discoveries. One of our most senior distinguished scientists, Anne Graybiel, is very well known for her work on the neural circuits involved both in Parkinson's disease, and it turns out the same circuits also playing an important role in how we learn habits, repetitive actions, and so on. We have the development of optogenetics, which initially started at Stanford, but a lot of that work is going on at the McGovern Institute here today. We have some fantastic new work from our faculty member Feng Zhang on editing the genome. It's like editing our DNA, like you would say, with a word processor. Incredibly important new tools. So those are some of the things I guess I would highlight.
Okay. What research does the Institute focus on?
You know, that's again I think one of our biggest strengths is we haven't chosen one narrow topic as an institute, but we're supporting work on really a lot of areas which share fundamental neural mechanisms. It turns out, I just mentioned, the neural circuits involved in learning new habits turned out to be neural circuits that are playing a role in Parkinson's disease. Certain neurotransmitters, dopamine, for example, involved in Parkinson's disease, very important role in normal learning, and so on and so on. So we're building on this base of overlapping circuits and functions, and then making progress from there.
So the next questions are about the future of brain research. What achievements do you want to obtain in the next 5 years?
Well, as a director of an institute, I guess there's always a temptation to promise perhaps more than can be delivered, and I never like to overhype the progress of research in a short time frame. But I do think it is realistic to expect that in the next 5 years we will really have made substantial progress in mapping out this pathway from a genetic alteration to an altered neural circuit that underlies an important psychiatric disease. This will happen all the way from animal models up to human subjects.
Can you give a prediction of when the scientists really unblock the brains?
I'm sorry, just repeat
Like,
that.
can you predict when the scientists can really unblock the brain?
Well, I expect that will be part of the one aspect of what our species is involved with forever. We will always be trying to understand our brains more and more. Just like it's like saying, when will we really unlock the secrets of the universe? I think there's practically an infinity of secrets to unlock. And so it's really, I think it's just going to be exciting as the discoveries continue to roll in over time.
Do you think it is possible to reproduce humans' brains after we unblock them? And do you think it will make people immortal?
To understand human brains in...
like, after we unblock them, can we really reproduce the humans?
You mean like in software?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's... actually, I have two friends that were having a debate some years ago of how we might most likely achieve immortality. One would be through biological approaches where we would learn to stop the aging process. And the other was through software, where we would understand so much about brain function that we could load essentially our brain operations into a computer, and then when our bodies died out, we could live forever in computer software. Anyhow, my two friends debated the opposite sides. They took opposite sides on that bet, and we're still waiting to see how that bet turns out. I don't know about transferring our full consciousness, but as I said earlier, we're certainly going to have many aspects of human intelligence emulated in software and computers and so on. And all the devices we interact with, our phones, our pad, tablets, and so on, are all going to become increasingly intelligent and less frustrating for us to deal with.
Do you think that the spirit that contained in human brains will end when humans pass away?
Well, this question of whether there's an immortal soul that would live on past the death of the brain itself, I think is, of course, it's a religious issue that I don't think scientists have an awful lot to contribute to. I think that I think there's a very healthy dialogue between religious leaders and scientists now, and both sides trying to learn from each other. But scientists are no different than anyone else, and wondering about questions just like that.
Could you explain more about the sixth sense? Where does it locate in our brains, and how does it work?
By the sixth sense, I assume you mean some paranormal ability for that people have some sense of what's going on in the world or other people and so on, or what's going to happen in the future. And I must say that that is a question that scientists can do research on, whether people truly have these supernormal abilities and so on. And frankly, I think the evidence for this has been unconvincing so far, that people can predict the future or have awareness of things that they can't experience through any of their other senses. So I think people are open-minded. We'd be convinced if there were convincing evidence that came forward, but I don't think currently there's evidence for those kinds of abilities.
Some computer science students and some mathematical I mean some mathematicians in Vietnam, want to ask whether they have any chances to research at your mock government institute, and if they do, how can they apply for that?
You know, as I mentioned earlier, we have a strong interest in supporting and helping to develop neuroscience around the world. You know, if you came to visit the McGovern Institute, you would see that we have people here from countries everywhere, all around the world, including from Vietnam, and we welcome people who want to be trained here and so on. Our contact information is on the website. If there's someone who wants to do research and so on, we'd be happy to talk with them. Of course, we're always looking for sources of support for people to come here. We've had some donors who have come forward and offered support for people from some countries, but we like to build that base of support for students from around the world, and we look forward to that.
The next question is from a computer expert in Vietnam, and he wants to ask, I would like to work as an associate of the Mock Government Institute. I have a scholarship for research. Could the Mock Government Institute sponsor a visa J1 for me?
We sponsor many visas for international students and scientists from around the world. So again, I can't comment on a particular case from someone I don't know, but I would welcome this person to contact us, and we could have that dialogue. I'm hoping to visit Vietnam in the not distant future, and hope to be able to meet some people there. You know, one of the things that I found is that there's often some reluctance to take people from a country if you don't know anyone there. It's just human nature. It's hard to evaluate people when you don't know anything about them or anything about the people who are recommending them. So I think we need to build up this communication among the faculty members of the different universities in different countries, so we all know each other, and we can appreciate their evaluations when they tell us they have a great student that would like to work with us and so on. So I take that as a very, very high priority.
So this is our last question today. Buddhism has principle, brain, and a spirit. Do you agree with that principle?
I must say I'm not greatly familiar with Buddhism. I've some. I know that many Buddhists believe in the value of meditation, and there's quite a bit of research going on now around the world on the benefits of meditation and what effects meditation has on the brain. There's I think quite good evidence that meditation leads to stress reductions, and working through stress systems, it seems to have beneficial effects on many different aspects of bodily function, brain and other functions. So I think we have much to learn from people who have been practicing effective techniques for hundreds or thousands of years, and I think we have the tools to do that now.
Okay, so we just have a new question from Vietnam. Dear Professor, I'm Ngô Đăng Nghia, Director of the Institute of Biotechnology and Environment in Nha Trang University of Vietnam. I'm now studying on conotocin from conus snails, and it is the beginning of our institute. I have two questions for you. The first one is, what do you think about the prospect of conotocin in neuroscience and the treatment of the disease related to neural system?
You know, I think some of our most exciting new ideas about treatments are coming from what we call natural products, coming from nature. The conotoxins are an example of that, where different animal species, plants, and so on have very active compounds that have evolved, of course, for different reasons, but we discover that they have many applications in human disease. So I'm not an expert in this particular case, but I think I'm very excited in general by that kind of approach.
The second question is, I would like to build up a group of neuroscience in my institute. Could we contact to your institute to get some help?
Yes, we'd be happy to talk with anyone who's building a neuroscience program. We could again share advice, knowledge. Might be possibilities of collaboration and so on. We're very, very open to that kind of approach. As I said, these are really big problems we're working on, and they are absolutely going to take the efforts of people all around the world, and we all benefit from those interactions. It's not one way. It's not us just helping someone else. It's what I found always in my international interactions is that once you begin that dialogue with people in other countries, everyone benefits. We all benefit. We all gain new knowledge. We gain new talent in the field and so on. I look forward to it.
Okay, well, I think that's about yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question and my audience. We are selected around 25 questions, and time we don't have so much, so we cannot send to Professor Desimone all questions. So we have some minutes late, last minutes. What things that you can share with our audience? So in Vietnam now, that is nearly 10 p.m. Yes, and some I received some email from our people, our audience. Thanks so much from Paris. Paris is at night, very early morning. So they watch now. So thank you so much for your very enthusiasm. So Professor Bob, please say something with our audience from Paris, from Vietnam, so at night, early morning.
All these other countries, I think they're all later than us, right? They're all later, either later in the day or nighttime, and so I especially appreciate that you're up late at night to watch this program. And I travel around the world. Of course, my biggest problem is jet lag, where my own brain is functioning. Maybe that's the 10% capacity that people worry about. My brain is functioning at very low capacity, but maybe people can review some of the scientific material in the morning when their brains are fresh. Again, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to the Boston Global Forum, and I will really appreciate if it's had some impact, so that if people around the world do follow up, do contact us, do think about neuroscience research, how they might support it, how they might participate, and so on. And that's the practical outcome, I think, that we make us all happy.
Yes, I hear that on April 30, the institute will have a lecture about winner prize, Skolnick Prize. So
by Huda Zogby, yes. We try to put all of our lectures online.
Yes.
We have a large video archive. We have many distinguished neuroscientists who have given talks here, and if you go to our website, many of them are available. And I believe that Dr. Zogby's talk will also be online. I encourage you to watch that and follow up.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. And I wish the best wishes for the institute, your institute, and new achievements. And we are prepared for the visit of Michael Dukakis, Governor Michael Dukakis, in late April. Maybe I think in as a prize near ceremony,
yeah.
as a Thai governor can visit and
Yeah,
that's
that'd be great.
Yeah, so
Look forward
we
to that.
and we hope and that is your institute will that is the first institution about neuroscience and brain research to unlock the human brain. We wish.
So do we.
Yeah, so yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and a very interesting time and valuable time talk to our audience. And thank you so much again for your time and very enthusiastic. Send question to Professor Desimone and also you have to watch at early morning. Thank you so much. See you later in another program. Thank you.